In this video, we're going to talk about how to structure your body paragraphs for academic writing. Many students feel uncomfortable with writing essays, and part of the reason why is that at this point, your essays have really become too complex for the 5 to 7 sentence paragraphs that you got used to earlier in your academic careers. And now you don't really know how to structure your essays anymore. But the good news is that there's still a general format that you can use to structure most body paragraphs for academic essays. And it uses a really simple acronym that is easy to remember with the word PEAL. Remember that this is for body paragraphs only. You don't want to use it for introductions or conclusions. They have their own structure that you're going to want to follow. So let's start with the P. P is for premise. Now, the premise of a paragraph is the point that the paragraph is going to work toward proving. It's generally given in the topic sentence and should be something that is arguable. It should not be a matter of personal opinion or of mere fact. It is the central idea that the rest of the paragraph is going to work to develop, okay? So it's the thesis statement, but for an individual paragraph. And everything else in that paragraph is going to connect back to it. So a bad premise would be something like, Hermione Granger is annoying. And the reason that that is a bad premise is because it's just a personal opinion. The reader's going to agree with it, or they're not going to agree with it. Another bad premise would be something like, Hermione Granger is the top of her class. And this premise doesn't work because it's just fact. There's nowhere to go for the rest of this paragraph. You can't develop it. You can't turn it into any kind of major idea. A good premise would be Hermione Granger's cunning makes her a good candidate for Slytherin House. Now this premise works. One, yeah, it's kind of an opinion. You might say, what's the difference between that and she's annoying? Well, annoying is purely subjective, right? However, by saying she's cunning, you have something you can prove. You can go through the text and you can give examples of her cunning. It is arguable. You have to show that she is cunning. And you have to show that this is a quality that is a good fit for Slytherin House. So you have to go through the text and provide examples of both of these things. So it gives you somewhere to go. It gives you something to develop in the rest of the paragraph. So this premise is not just personal opinion that is subjective. It's not just a mere statement of fact. It is something that you can argue and develop in the rest of the paragraph. So the first E in PEAL stands for evidence. Never make your reader take your word for it, right? What you have to do, you have to support your premise by providing evidence. This can come from the text or secondary research. If you are writing a research paper, you want to make sure that you are supposed to be doing that. This can take the form of summary or paraphrase, but you should have direct quotes in every body paragraph. Don't ever just make them take your word for it. A good rule of thumb is you want somewhere around 20% evidence. So we have parts to our Hermione and Slytherin premise. So if our premise is Hermione Granger's cunning makes her a good candidate for Slytherin House, our evidence needs to provide examples of her cunning. And it also needs to provide examples of that quality being required by Slytherin. So we need to give this evidence directly from the text whenever possible using direct quotes. And again, remember a good general ratio should be around 20% of your paper being directly quoted. And we want to make sure that we properly cite our evidence using the appropriate method. And in literature, we use MLA, which stands for Modern Language Association. In other fields, you might use Chicago Style or APA, something like that. Now, the next E stands for explanation, and this comes after every piece of evidence. So after every piece of evidence, the evidence needs to be explained. And this is probably going to feel really, really awkward to you. You're probably going to feel like you're going into way too much detail, like you're over-explaining, because you have the benefit of your own train of thought. You know why you chose that piece of evidence, but your reader doesn't have that benefit. And that's really important to keep in mind. You're not writing for yourself. You're writing for someone else. So what you need to do here is explain, why did you pick that particular piece of evidence? How does it relate to your premise? What does it show? Be explicit here. A good rule of thumb, and this is going to sound a little bit mean, is to assume that your readers may be just a little bit on the slow side and needs to be kind of held by the hand. They'll understand it, but you have to really explain it to them. It should feel like over-explaining to you. So wherever you think you need to stop, go a few more steps. Every piece of evidence needs to be explained before you move on to the next piece of evidence, because you're going to have more than one piece of evidence per premise. So give multiple examples of Hermione being cunning. Give a couple of different places that show that cunning is very important to Slytherin house, more so than the other houses. So it's really going to be like peel, because you're going to bounce back and forth between evidence and explanation. Evidence, then explain the evidence. Evidence, then explain the evidence. Evidence, then explain the evidence. And you stop when you're finished. There's no magic rule of thumb for how many pieces of evidence and explanation every paragraph needs. You just go till you're done. The L is for link, and the link can function as your transition, and it can be more than one sentence. This is the last part of your body paragraph, and what it should do is make sure that the premise has been proven, and it connects the premise back to the thesis of the entire paper. So it's doing a couple of different things here. This also functions as a really nice little self-check for you as the author to make sure that you're cohesive, that you're staying on track, that you're not going off topic. Did you end up where you meant to, or did you go on a little segue way off the train of thought down somewhere else? And that's really it. Peel is a structure you can follow for all of your body paragraph needs for really most fields of study.